It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
This is Straight Talk with an elevated Greg Penn, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shannon Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fan, the Preacher Man.
Welcome to Straight Talk. Today I got the crew. I got the crew. Ron is back. I got Bishop Tate is here. Shannon is somewhere. I would say around God's throne, but he's somewhere running around, running behind a 3-year-old. But anyway, well, thank you so much for your comments and your views and opinion that you tell us about what's going on. Tape, you all right over there?
I'm good, man.
Okay.
All right. Good. Wardrobe change.
Wardrobe change. Yeah. And we thank you for your views and opinions and comments that you share with us. Thank you so much, Reverend Motley, for your comments last week, and for others who we saw in stores and different places who view the program regularly. And we thank you so very much. And we're gonna talk about, the Bible said let the dead bury the dead, but we're gonna talk about Lindsey Graham a little bit. We're gonna talk about Lindsey Graham a little bit today, and we're gonna see a spot from Chris Hayes and his conversation with one of the Democratic senators who really talked about Lindsey and about this vote on the SAVE Act. But before we get into that, though, let's talk a little bit about this, the bill that did pass that Trump did not want to sign, that he held up to get the senators to vote for the SAVE Act.
He didn't sign it.
No, he didn't sign it. No, he didn't sign it. He didn't sign it. But he said he was not going to sign it unless they passed the SAVE Act. But it passed anyway because, you have so many days in to sign and then become law. And that's what I was trying to tell you here in Georgia, we talked before. If his governor don't sign the bill, he didn't have to sign the bill. Once the House and Senate pass it, it becomes law automatic. So it's now the law in terms of these houses and these developers buying up all these houses and raising the housing price market up so high that they can't do that anymore. Shouldn't be doing it anyway. I ain't gonna say they can't do it.
They can do it, but it's a penalty.
And it's a limit.
They'll let you do it. Mm-hmm. However, once you hit the limit, then if you continue, then there's a penalty you have to pay.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for straightening me out on that. Thank you for that. So what is the penalty?
I don't know what the penalty is.
But it is a penalty.
Yeah, it is a penalty. So there is a ceiling. But it's equivalent to baseball, the luxury tax.
Yeah, the salary cap, right? Yeah,
the luxury tax.
Well, let me tell you about the luxury tax is that don't mean nothing. Then if they get a penalty with all the money they get, they just keep on buying and keep on buying and keep on buying. If it's not a criminal penalty, if you're talking about a monetary penalty.
Right.
For a billionaire, a trillionaire, that don't mean nothing. They'll pay the penalty, keep on going.
Well, we still only halfway home in terms of the housing crisis in the United States. The reason why we had to put limit on these real estate conglomerates is that average Americans, young Americans, are being paid way too little to be able to afford the single family homes that are coming on the market. So in addition to limiting what the multinational conglomerates are doing and purchasing up most of the homes in this country, we have to start giving low interest loans to college graduates. We have to find a way to incentivize and put money in the hands of young Americans so that we can reinvest in the American dream. So it's great to put a cap and a limit on what a lot of the mortgage brokers and these corporations can do, but we still have to find a way to increase the floor, raise the floor on what Americans are making so that Americans can begin to buy more of these single family homes that should be available on the market now.
You make a valid point, because when we look at the young people and their salaries that they're getting, they went up most of your fast food places, what have you. And when we did this to the union, we started talking about we need to raise the salaries up to $15 an hour. We were saying that the federal government raises minimum wage ought to be $15. The federal government is still $7 and some odd cents. $7 and some change.
And the state minimum wage less than that.
It's less than that. It's
$5.15, I believe.
Yeah. So when we started talking about the minimum wage, and then we talking about the price of things with Donald Trump and all his tariffs. Hello, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that. but the reality of it is they can't afford a home. They can't even hardly afford an apartment, to stay in an apartment, a decent apartment. Because when you're talking about a 1-bedroom apartment, $1,500 and $1,800 a month for one bedroom, oh man, please. I mean, so it's a good thing for single families to be able to buy a house if they can afford it. Right. If they can afford it. But you got to save and save and save and save and save. And with gasoline prices going back up, right? With child care, oh good God! Somebody told me this. Somebody told one of my members told me this, that she has a little daughter. She want to get her in daycare. She said it costs $535 a week. A week. Yes. For child care. $535 a week for child care. Wow. Man, listen. I remember when my kids were little, and I was paying $50 a week for 3 kids. And I was crying about the $50 a week with 3 kids, man. But you talking about one kid, $535 a week. That's child care, that's gasoline, that's food prices going up, and then credit cards, the interest rate on credit cards. You know what I mean? All of these things that affect people, because a lot of people trying to use their credit card to be able to survive. Right. So these are real issues, brothers and sisters, the real issues.
So what do we say the solution, or what possible solution? Obviously we can't do it here, but what are some things that we think could assist those young people? Obviously, cost of living is going up, houses are going up, the cost of lumber is going up, and all of that stuff. So how do we help them? The $500 a week child care. Mm-hmm. What do we? How do we help them?
Now you talking about a single parent.
Yeah, what do we do?
Listen, the bottom line is going to be you have to raise up, like Ron just said, the bottom ceiling. You got to raise the ceiling up so they can afford to do it. I mean, the minimum wage is just too low. And then when you got these kids now working in Burger King and McDonald's, and they got college degrees. Right. They can't find a job. Then they still got a student loan, and they're trying to pay a student loan and have a family. And you ask, what can we do? I mean, actually, really, what we can do is start spending those trillions of dollars and throwing trillions of dollars and billions of dollars away and start taking care of the people here at home.
Well, the American wage system and what we pay laborers to perform the vital actions of our economy is indefensible. I was looking at Democracy Now!, I believe, a couple of days ago, and they said 80% of Americans in the last year have had to dip into their long-term savings, whether it was their retirement IRA, to handle everyday expenses, whether it's groceries, whether it's the light bill, utilities, or whether it's your mortgage or your rent. And we're in and remain in a 50-year depression on wages. The last national wage increase in America, where we saw wages across industries go up, was, I think, in the early 1970s. And so it's so difficult because since the 1970s, CEO salaries have increased by 400%, where the wages of average workers, I mean, when my parents were children and my grandparents were in the labor force, I believe that was the last time in America where a single adult, both parents didn't even have to work. You could afford a home with one job. You could take your family on a vacation with one of the adults having full-time employment. That is unheard of for the last 3 generations in the United States. So until we start investing in ourselves, and it does seem very difficult, Bishop Tate, for us to have the type value shift to make a dent in this real estate crisis, because the industries and the top 1% are so controlling our labor structure. Who has the political clout to force industries to pay more? Is it the labor unions? Is it governments? I'm unable to see where we can make those changes right now.
I'm glad you said that. I think the one is that when we look at where we are, if you can bring down the price of housing, if you can bring down the price of rent, mortgages, rent, if those prices come down, if you level it out, just level it out, you will be able, people can move back to what you're saying. They can go back to what you're saying, but they can't do it now because they can't do it now because everything is just too high.
Right.
I mean, a gallon of milk, almost $5.
Right.
A gallon of milk. I mean, really? A half, not a whole loaf of bread, not a whole loaf, but a half of a loaf of bread is $3.89. A half a loaf of bread. I mean, when you could go to the day old bread and get bread for 25 cents. But they don't, even if you go there now, it's day old bread, it may cost $2. I mean, so you can't, there's no win-win here. And I hear what you're saying. What can we do? There has to be a restructuring and a rethinking as to looking out for at least the less, the lost, and the left out. And it's got to be people who are concerned about not the 1%ers are so greedy. They're so greedy that they can care less about the poor. They can care less about those who are needy. They give you handouts. They give you these food boxes of over food they couldn't sell. They got so much they couldn't sell, so now we're just gonna give it to the masses. That give you some vegetables, no meat, just vegetables, right? So I mean, I'm just saying that we have to look at, and a lot of people are doing like I did, and so many other people. We started back gardening. To at least have some vegetables, some food. Some people got chickens. I mean, in the urban areas, not the rural.
That was my grandfather over on Hollywood Road. He had his own chicken coop. He had a cow. We used to go over there. It was amazing to see how many animals. And it was because I'm in the transition born in 1980, in which our parents and grandparents were still connected to those ways of doing things that brought your expenses down. You did have gardens next to nearly every home. I remember that both my grandmother and my grandfather on both sides of my family had that. That's absent now. We do have community gardens, but the concept of supplementing our income with our own skills and our own ways to provide for ourselves. We have been so divorced from that as we've become more corporate, as our careers have taken us more into the retail sphere, the corporate sphere. We've lost those self-sufficiency skills of gardening, making your own clothes, finding ways to invest in yourself. In fact, if you are doing those things now, you could be looked at as a hillbilly, as somebody who is backwoods, someone who is lacking the status to be able to go out to Neiman Marcus or to go out to Whole Foods and purchase the name brand commodity that makes you so in style today.
Well, you make me smile with that because you're absolutely right, because we got to keep it with the Joneses. Jones got a new car today. Jones is buying a big house. But, I remember as a kid coming up, I'm a product of the 50s. And as a kid coming up, the mom and them used to can preserves. They used to can food, string beans and, corn and tomatoes and pears and peaches and all of that. They had those mason jars and they would come. And so we never went for enough. We didn't know about being hungry because if they didn't have the money to buy it, we didn't know it because they just go get a jar of this, a jar of that, a jar of this, and they would make a meal. from what they had bought it, because they would go out to the farmer's market a certain time of year. They go out to the farmer's market and we shell peas and we shuck corn. I mean, we did all those things. So we never went without food. And then we'd go up to the Sunbeam Breaker and get some of that devil bread and buy us a $5, 5-cent Honey Bun.
You know, that's a concept I talk about a lot in preaching, divine sovereignty and personal responsibility. And what that basically means is that
please tell us.
We believe that God can do anything, but when it comes to our personal responsibility, where are we? Mm-hmm. You know, you want God to take your blood pressure down, but you want to eat pork. So divine sovereignty and personal responsibility. And I said that because you guys touched on a lot of things. You talked about gardening. You talked about investing in yourselves. So when we look at the least, the lost, the left out, at what point do we look at our circumstances and say that this is not permanent? I mean, am I least, lost, left out forever? You know, we joke about it, but I did grow up in the housing projects. But even in the housing projects, I had exposure. I went to a public high school, and I saw that I did not want to stay in the projects. Now, my vision of getting out was an apartment and being a manager at a Burger King. But I saw something different. It was not, well, I'm going to be here and I'm going to have children here and I'm going to have children in this situation. So at some point, when we look at the costs, the minimum wages, I understand the high school student. I get that. But if we're 25, we're 26, we're 27, and we were minimum wage, I used to clean buildings in high school. I went to the bank, cleaned buildings. That's what I did as a kid. But then I went to school. I wasn't the greatest student, but I knew I couldn't come back to this. Personal responsibility. So where's personal responsibility? Because we're talking about raising the floor and dropping marginal gains and all of that. I get it. But at some point, I think we have to say, this is not my life. And community colleges, apprenticeships, programs that we have, just taking a Microsoft class. A lot of these programs are free that when I was at Linwood Park Church, Dr. Warner told me, he said, graduate. I don't care what you do, because when you graduate, you become marketable. And once you have some type of degree, I had some student loans. There were not a lot, but I had some. I paid them off. But I was marketable. And I'm going to say this, not being nerdy or anything, I grew up in the projects. Some of us, we have issues. We have records. And it's not one record. They look at the rap sheet. And so when they look at the rap sheet and you apply for a job, and I'm paying $25, $30 an hour, but then I look at the next guy or girl that does not have the rap sheet, who am I going to pick? So where does personal responsibility fall into this?
I'm gonna let you hit that, and then I'm gonna come on the backside.
The best way that we can center personal responsibility in our community is by having an intergenerational approach. We have to set our children up and give our children a mission of what their purpose for going to school is. What's your purpose for taking that internship? Now, I was given the opportunity to go to white schools beginning in the mid 90s, around 93 when I went to middle school. And those were the last years of busing. It was the M to M program, minority to majority. Now, I had a conversation with my mom this past Sunday. It's amazing that these conversations really piggyback off each other. And my mom said her purpose for doing that and exposing me to that opportunity was to get a better education, to get connected to greater resources. The one thing that was missing in that element was my community and my parents telling me, we're sending you to these schools for you to bring that knowledge back to our community, for you to bring the skills back to build up our home. When you look at the prices of homes, particularly for my generation, I'm looking at Black communities 45. This is the earning window for Black family production. You're in your 30s and 40s when you're having a family. How many Black communities and Black families are living in family legacy homes? We lost my father's home. We lost my grandfather's home. So all of the children in my family, we have to go out and purchase our own homes. So we are missing opportunities to give our next generation a economic leg up by having legacies that they can walk right into, and we can guide them to go right into those spaces that have been carved out for them. And so when we're constantly having to recycle, and every new generation in our community has to start out and get it for themselves, because it's been very difficult for us to transfer wealth generation to generation, even if that's because of family disagreements and children going into a different way because the family's been hard to stay together. If that's been because of incursions from the white community when they came and disrupted many of the communities that we owned at the turn of the 20th century, all of those systems combine to put us in a situation in which our young people, our children, are typically having to grow up and get it for themselves. So if we can find ways to begin creating those apprenticeships, creating those transition plans while Black children are young, and giving Black children a mission for why they are doing the things that they're doing and why we're exposing the things that they're being exposed to, by the time they are young adults, I guarantee they will have the skills, the aptitudes, and the abilities to be able to make those economic gains that can lift us out of a couple of these economic dungeons that we find ourselves in.
Well, I got a different perspective. You say you grew up in a project. I grew up in a house with my grandma's house with my mom, my dad, myself, my auntie. We had a family house. It was a family house with rats and roaches, right? But I didn't determine when people say, well, you're going to be like this. You ain't going to be nothing. Because where you come from, you ain't going to really be nothing. But it has to be a self-determination for the individual. You know, it's got to be you. You desire not to do that. You can't make everybody have that self-desire and determination. You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. You can't make him drink now. Right. You know, so because there were people who had better situations than I did, didn't fare as well as I did, right? So I mean, some of them had mothers and fathers that were teachers and everything else, but they didn't fare as well as I did. You know what I'm saying? So it has to be something that a person has to want to be, and not that was what you wanted to do. So you made a conscious decision that I am not going to be in a project, that I'm going to be able to make a decent living for myself and my family, and we ain't going to raise no kids in no project, right? Mm-hmm. You made that decision. See, we can create all the opportunities for people in the world. And Ron, I hear what you're saying. We can create these wealth kids. But a lot of our parents, a lot of our grandparents, they were carpenters, they were brick masons. They had a business going. But when our kids came along, they didn't want to be brick masons. Exactly. They didn't want to take over the business. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to do something other than, but you already had a business. We already had businesses, but we didn't want to be a part of the business. I just met with one of my friends classmate, well, yeah, I grew up with him, who's doing well in the transportation thing, in the transportation business, right? Doing well, been doing it for the last 40 years. Guess what? His daughter and his son in the business with him. That's a rarity. You know, like you take like Russell. Just like Russell, his boys, they in the business, they took over the business. But that's a rarity in our community because most of the time when our parents have created that path, grandparents created that path, whether it was a cafe or a restaurant or whatever it is, they abandoned it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it. I mean, so a lot of it is left up to that individual and what that individual want to do. Yeah, we were displaced by people coming back into the community that they left, and then they start doing things in terms of eminent domain and taking people's property for back taxes and all that stuff, and the family stuff that you're talking about, all those things were a part of it. But the reality of it is, it's the individual. It's that person that, what is it that you want to do to make your life better for you and your family and the future for your family. You made a conscious decision to do it, and you did it. You made a conscious decision to do it, and you did it, right? I made a conscious decision to do it, and I did it. And we're still doing it. And we're trying to help others to be able to do the same thing that we were able to do. And gonna take.
I wrote down exposure when you guys were talking.
Sure. Uh-huh.
And my wife, she's from LaGrange, the country. And I'm from the city. But when I went there to visit her, I saw something I had never seen before. I saw a mother, a father. I saw siblings. I saw a small house, but they all live under the same roof. And just recently, they just sold the house, and the mother's getting ill and have the money, what have you. But that house was in the family. I never had that because growing up in the project, I tell people all the time, we transferred. You don't, when you move out the project, you move out. But when you transfer from John Hope home to Perry home to Harris home, those are transfers.
Right.
But exposure, and I think if we can give our children, our young people, exposure to Bishop Fan's point, then they could see when we take that horse to the water.
Right.
Exposure will let them see more than water. But if they don't have any exposure, all they see is water. And I'm not going to drink that. But if they see, I can look beyond this. And all I knew is that I wanted them to turn them to you. I didn't want to go there. And I just wanted to be an apartment. Now, thank God I'm probably in a place bigger than an apartment right now. but that's all I wanted.
Is it the closet?
That's all I wanted. Because that's all I could see. Because I didn't have the exposure that I got once I went to school. I got to church and I got out of that little circle. And if we can get our kids, at least the lost, the left out, if we can give them exposure, yes. I think that will help.
But I think, Ron, let me say that. I think we're exposing them to see what your mother did, what my mom did, and dad did. They didn't expose us to anything, even negative stuff that came out of the house.
That's true.
Right today, they seeing everything.
That's true.
They see everything.
You're right. That's true.
So, that's just real true. Because parents were parents, right?
That's right.
And I don't care where you came from, the project,
You're right.
basement of your grandmother's house, wherever you came from, they would not expose you to certain things.
You're right.
They would expose. I didn't even know my daddy couldn't read. Because my mother was working a job, and when I came home from school, my daddy had us saying our timetable. Because, the old insurance people used to have the timetables, and my dad would go, give me them timetables. What is it? And we were teaching him the timetables. we thought that he was, I'm just saying but they invested in us. They invested in us. These parents ain't taking time to even invest in these kids.
You're right.
They buying these kids. They buying them.
This is follow up what you've been preaching on so much each week, Bishop Fan. Yeah, America may have taken our history, but we gave away our heritage.
Absolutely.
When we started as a community highlighting the aptitudes and benefits of leaving the community to go get your success in the, and let me say it this way, there's nothing wrong with redefining and leaving your community, going into the corporate world or doing whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But when that becomes the only definition of success, that you gotta get a college degree. I mean, in my generation, when we were coming up in the early 90s, the only way you were successful is if you got a college degree. And if you moved out the hood and you went out and conquered the world. There was very little emphasis in my generation and every generation below me that taking up the mantle of your grandparents and your parents is just as honorable as going to Harvard.
Absolutely.
It's just as honorable as going to Stanford. It's just as honorable as being the first member of the presidential cabinet, or all these different things that we celebrate at such a high level. So we need to change the narrative in our community and reclaim our heritage. Again, the more I research Booker T. Washington, the more I find his solution to be very acceptable to the Black condition today. Yes, we need to be involved in politics at every level, but until we firm up our economic basis and be able to provide a means of production for our community, politics will always be mitigated in the Black community. That's why we are voting at historic levels in the Black community, but yet the political class refuses to answer the requirements of our community and refuse to focus on our needs, because as a class, we refuse to create an economic foundation and an economic base that will compel the political class to respect our agenda. So we got to get back to raising generations of Black boys and girls who value becoming farmers, who value becoming tailors, plumbers, carpenters, and those skilled positions that keep a community independent and economically viable.
Yeah, man. Let me just say this. You hit it dead on the head, Ron, because if we taught our heritage, those things that brought us over. What about the ladies that used to make those pies and sell pies and stuff? You know, they take care of their kids. I mean, those are things that now you got bakeries. You got people coming from other countries now doing what we were doing. They taking out because we gave it up. We gave up our heritage. If we go back to understanding canning and preserving and all those other things, man, we won't have to worry about it. We could put Kroger's out of business. I mean, I'm just talking about for real. We could, but because we want fast food, we want fast this, and just call it food. Now it ain't fast no more. It's just food, and it ain't even good food. Right. But listen, we're gonna have to wrap this segment up right here. But it's been a great one. But listen, we'll see you on the other side with Miss C, and we're gonna come back and talk about God Bless the Dead, Lindsey Graham.
Hi, Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast, or more or less. Listen, the Children's Soar invites you to their school supply drive on Saturday, July 25th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Liberty International Church, 1362 Metropolitan Parkway in Southwest Atlanta. Your donations of school book bags and other school supplies will help to support students in the community prepare for the upcoming school year. To donate supplies, volunteer, or get more information, please send an email to Children's Soar, and their email is tcsinc@thechildrensoar.org. That's tcsinc@thechildrensoar.org. All right. Midway Missionary Baptist Church at 2280 Godby Road in College Park will give away free groceries. They will have a free grocery distribution every third Saturday from 11:30 to 2:30 p.m. This is sponsored by Helping People in Need in partnership with the Judge Penny Brown Reynolds Foundation. I want to say congratulations to Paris Brown of Flipper Temple AME Church as he assumes his position as the newly elected president of the Atlanta, North Georgia Annual Conference Lay Organization. May you be blessed in your service, Paris. I've known Paris for a long time. He and I both attend Flipper Temple AME, and he and Greg Fan, the preacher man, also know each other as co-workers. We wish you the best, Paris. And listen, before you leave, I'd like for you to like us. I'd like for you to subscribe to us. And those little buttons are right there on the screen. And I'd like for you to leave comments. Let us know how we're doing, okay? And 4, I'd like for you to share us. Don't keep Straight Talk News to yourself. Let everybody know what you know. We are Straight Talk News, okay? And if you'd like for us to announce your event, just email it to us at straighttalknews1362@gmail.com. That's straighttalknews1362@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to get it on for you. And listen, I pray that you have a wonderful week in the Lord and that everything goes your way and nothing will be a hindrance to you. I pray that the Lord will be with you wherever you go, whatever you do. And in the meantime and in between time, may the Lord God bless you real good. Bye now.
Friends, teachers, and alumni, welcome to our debate. The motion for today is, who holds the biggest responsibility when it comes to solving the gun violence crisis?
Currently, guns are promoted as symbols of power, glory, and excitement, rather than the dangerous weapons they are. Communities must step up and protect against this normalization. Doctors, social workers, and teachers are all responsible for keeping us safe and healthy, because the root of the solution lies in collective action.
Laws alone cannot stop a bullet. It's up to individuals to take action. They have to make sure their guns are stored securely and out of reach of kids or those at risk of suicide.
Well, communal education addresses this individual action issue as well. We can teach kids about the dangers and about the misuse of guns.
I don't think you realize that my opponent is blatantly
speaking.
stating arguments that have no evidence to back them.
If you're blaming me for having no evidence, I haven't seen you bring up any statistics.
Judge, think about it. Do we really want to blame all of this on the community, our friends, our doctors, and our teachers? No.
Well, I completely disagree.
I'm not going to listen to points that are completely ridiculous.
Point of inquiry. Do you guys even realize that the #1 killer of children and teens are gun injuries?
And it's not just mass shootings. It's homicides, unintentional injuries, and suicide.
Why are we fighting about this?
With so many people stuck in their views, we're not talking about it altogether.
Is figuring out who to blame really solving the problem at hand?
We must set aside our differences and embrace open conversations with everyone.
You're probably starting to realize now, this is not a debate.
This is a message to you all to start a conversation right now. We yield our
Republican president kind of at war with the Republican senators, assuring people that Graham was on his side before his untimely passing, and a math that seems to me fairly imposing, particularly as you head towards this Blanche hearing this week. What's your read?
Well, Chris, I think you're right on all the votes that you just went through, starting with the Blanche hearing and vote in judiciary, and then some of the war powers resolutions on the floor of the Senate. But I would like to go back to the point you made in your monologue, because I thought it was a really important point about Lindsey Graham, who essentially decided to go all in with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, of course, ran in the last election saying no wars. And we are now in a big war with Iran. And Lindsey Graham is a very big part of that story, along with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And as you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Lindsey Graham are very close. Prime Minister Netanyahu, praised Lindsey Graham's great work just upon his passing. And so I just want to say amen to the storyline you put together. I'm not sure we knew exactly how much influence Lindsey Graham would have, but by my reading, at the end of the day, he did push hard in this 20-year project that both he and Prime Minister Netanyahu had to go to war with Iran.
Yes, and I think a lot of times people think like, oh, there's a lot of sort of condescension around Graham. But my point there is the senator is an extremely smart and extremely capable operator with a set of things that he actually believed in and pursued. And we are living in the world that brought about. I mean, today, the White House has sent official notification to Congress that there is now another war with Iran, if I'm not mistaken. They have, under the War Powers Act, basically said there's now a new war. The memorandum of understanding is dead. And now you have been notified per the War Powers Act that basically it's a new war and the clock starts ticking. What do you think about that?
Well, that's right. It's complete game playing with the timeline. And, the really terrible thing is that Senate Republicans have been complicit in allowing this president just to run roughshod over the Constitution, completely ignoring their own constitutional duties. Because, the president says, OK, we'll have a ceasefire today. And so the war powers resolution clock starts again tomorrow. It's obviously a way for a president to completely circumvent the Congress and the law. I will say, Chris, that it hasn't gotten much attention, but tomorrow we will have a vote in the Senate on what's called a motion to proceed to the National Defense Authorization Bill, which is a request for well over $1 trillion, a huge increase in defense spending. And I hope that my Democratic Senate colleagues will join me and others in blocking that from moving forward, because right now, in my view, it essentially would be a de facto recognition or support for the war in Iran if we just let that go through. So I did want to flag that for you to be watching along with the Blanche hearings and everything else.
That is, we should just note that's not a special supplemental. That's the sort of normal process of national defense authorization, the NDAA. It's considered usually a must-pass bill. And there's a huge new ask in terms of the amount of money that the Trump administration wants from that as well. Do you get the sense that the falling apart of the memorandum of understanding changes things on Capitol Hill? Again, no one, I think, puts much credence in the Democrats able to get 3 or 4 defectors from the Republican side. But I do wonder if gas prices spiking again, which many people think is going to happen, and us sort of being back where we were 3 or 4 weeks ago does change the complexion of what's happening on Capitol Hill.
I think it does, because, as you say, what could possibly go wrong now, right? Donald Trump has now said he's going to charge a 20% fee on traffic going through the Strait. Iran, of course, has now said the Strait is closed again. No doubt we'll see oil and gas prices go up if that standoff and that fight continues. And so, yes, I do think that will have an impact on Republicans when we continue to push for the war powers resolution votes.
You mentioned, we talked about Todd Blanche and that of the votes this week. I do think, again, even before everything's happened with the health of Mitch McConnell, who appears to be convalescing, although we don't know the timeline. Obviously, Lindsey Graham's sudden passing. He'll be, I think, replaced by his sister very quickly. I think she'll be sworn in on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. But, I mean, on the merits, this seems like a no-brainer. Obviously, not up to me. But what do you, I mean, do you think that's a winnable vote? I mean, is it winnable for Democrats to block him? I guess is my question.
Well, it's winnable, but only if senators like Susan Collins and others decide that the political price of voting for him is too high. But as we've often said, you know, Susan Collins votes with the Trump administration, except for when it doesn't count. And if they need her vote on Todd Blanche, she's very likely to deliver it. So this is why I'm pretty cautious, Chris, about sort of saying that, you know, Lindsey Graham's sudden passing and the Mitch McConnell situation will necessarily have a significant outcome on the votes, because at the end of the day, so many of these members ended up doing what Donald Trump tells them to do. Now, maybe that will be different, but experience does not tell us that.
Well, brothers, I tell you, Chris Hayes and the senator there had a great topic about, you know, I mean, Mr. Graham, you know, Chris said Mr. Graham was a smart man. He was smart and intelligent, but he was wishy-washy. Now, ain't no doubt about that. He was definitely wishy-washy. You know, one minute he was for Trump, the next minute he wasn't for Trump. One minute he was for the war. Now then he is for the war, but all along he was for the war, as the commentators saying. Here he was orchestrated to make sure that we got into this war. Oh man, I just got to say this though, guys, before we get into any more discussion about this. I heard Whitney from Coldwork says that Donald Trump said he could stop this war anytime he get ready. He chose
Day one.
He chose not to do it. But his son and daughter, his grandchildren, none of them in the war. What about the parents who losing their sons and their daughters in this war that we shouldn't even be in? What about them? Human lives. What do you care about human? You represent not yourself and self-interest, but you represent this nation as a whole. But it's all about self. Well, but anyway, I'm gonna stop there. Let you jump in.
I don't know. I don't know if he could.
I'm sorry. My phone was going off.
I don't know if he can really stop the war because the Iranians. They're going to march their own drummer. So he can declare that the war is over, but it's going to be based on the Iranians' need. Now, if he says, we're going to come out, we're going to leave you guys alone, we're going to stop bombing you, what have you, we're going to leave your enrichment alone, the Iranians say, okay. But I still say, when you bomb a school with children, it's not over. I heard somebody say, it may be finished, but it's not over.
Not over.
Because I just cannot see how the sons of the brothers of those girls or those teachers would just let that go. Now, okay, we didn't forget this. Because you bombed a school. And my sister was in there. My mother was in there. Those children, those boys are going to grow up and they're not going to forget that.
Mm-hmm. In addition to this war with Iran being so much the engine of Trump's distraction and deception, we've refused, we've nearly forgot about the Epstein files and Trump's complicity with the greatest sexual crime against children in the history of the world, because we're now embroiled in a war that now seems like it has a new expiration date. It may not have an expiration date. The National Defense Authorization Bill is being voted on today. Another $1 trillion.
Another trillion.
Yeah, that the defense budget is trying to secure from Congress to prolong this war. And this war is also Senator Graham's war. Lindsey Graham has long been an advocate of fighting Iran with Israel. This has been a multi-decade strategy by him and Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. And they finally got a president that was willing to execute this war for his own personal benefit and his own personal distractions. But Lindsey Graham was first elected to Congress in 1994. He was a part of that GOP wave that brought in Newt Gingrich, that brought in Lindsey Graham, that brought in a lot of these guys that 40 years that Democrats were able to dominate Congress at the federal level and were unable to extend civil rights benefits and legislation, unable to extend workers' rights benefits. And those Republicans, with Lindsey Graham at the center of it, began chipping away each half decade at all of these policies that undergirded the democracy of America, until the point now that 40 years later after his, or 35 years later after his initial election, the president of the United States now has sweeping military authority that can execute a war now at will and reset the clock to Congress to avoid having them needing to declare war. We now have a president that is earning now $2 billion a year from his own policies and administration, because that's how much money Trump earned in 2025, his first full year reelected as president. And so we have seen the GOP since 1994 nearly rewrite every political convention in this country to benefit themselves, benefit the corporations that they are connected to, and benefit the moral causes that they support, whether it's breaking Roe v. Wade, which they've done, whether it's breaking down civil rights legislation like the Voter Rights Act, which they've done, whether it's deregulation, which they've done. And so we are now reaping the consequences of the worldview of the GOP, and beginning in 1994. And Senator Lindsey Graham is one of the underlying figures that has created this transformation of America from initially trying to pursue some form of democracy into becoming a complete kleptocracy in which the government steals off the top and then gives us the remainders to fight over as the 98% of Americans.
What's a kleptocracy?
A kleptocracy is when the government is actively stealing money from the taxpayer base, using it for private practice, for private enterprise and private gain. And that's what our government is doing. You don't think Trump is literally stealing?
You keep saying the government.
Is Trump not he's the president?
He's not the government. An individual is doing that.
But he's investing in the companies that are owned by his children.
Okay.
Is that not a...
But he's doing that. This is not a law.
But Bush did it with Halliburton. So did Dick Cheney. They did it as well. The last Republican administration before the Trump, but they were also double dipping.
When you say the government is like you said,
Bush was the president.
Okay, is that a law that they could do that?
No, it's not. Wait a minute.
No, I'm just playing on his word.
What he's saying is it the law that they can steal? Obviously, it is.
But they steal it through government. They're using the government to steal.
But again, obviously it is. Obviously, a law.
There's no law.
Obviously, it's a law. They're doing it, and they've been allowed to do it. I mean, really, you know what they say, when you do something so long, it becomes law.
It becomes law, right?
It becomes
exactly.
Law. It becomes law. I mean, it becomes law because you have practiced this way to do this for so long. It becomes law. So if he's allowed to steal like he's stealing and doing the things that he's doing, even though the law prevents that, then you got the Supreme Court to come back and uphold that. right? So, but where is the law?
Trump has also invested in the privatized ICE facilities that are housing the illegal immigrants that his Homeland Security is detaining
and killing.
We saw a judge just now with his with that slush fund that he made, the $2 billion slush fund, that the judge just said this wasn't even a real legal case.
So that wasn't a law. He couldn't do it.
But he still did it. This is what we're saying.
To do it. There are laws against it. Now, whether or not there are people who are going to enforce the law. Now, that's something totally different.
Okay, so you
can have water right here, and you'll still die of dehydration if you refuse to drink it. Just because the law is there, it's just what we just said, leading a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
The judge just told him he can't do it.
But he did the terrorists.
Okay, but
when is the judge going to say that?
Hold it. Time out. Ron is back.
Did y'all miss me? Did you miss me last week?
Ron is back. No, Taker already deal with semantics. He always gonna deal with semantics. But the reality of it is that it's happening and it shouldn't be happening.
Correct.
It's happening and it should not be happening. And a lot of things that are happening that should not be happening in terms of because if you really want to deal with it, no man is above the law and it shouldn't be happening. I mean, and they'll be saying it and be saying that no man is above the law, but yet we keep seeing men, not just a man, not just him, but men are above the law. I mean, the January 6th conspirators, they're above the law. You know what I mean? Because he pardoned them. He made by pardoning them, he put them above the law. Because what they did was null effect. It wasn't problem. It wasn't against the law. So they're above the law.
Now I'm curious. Hopefully in November, the House flips and possibly the Senate flips. At that point, will he continue to do these things? Now, what I think will happen is that once these branches say no, he's going to try to run to the Supreme Court. Now, will the Supreme Court circumvent the legislation, the Senate and the Congress? And if that happens, then we got a problem. Because right now, he's not being stopped at any level because it's a Republican Congress, it's a Republican Senate, and it's Republican Supreme Court. But if that level, if they say no, and then he tries to bypass them and go to the Supreme Court, then that's what we
Are you comfortable with the amount of money he's made as a private citizen while executing the office of a president?
Are you comfortable with that?
Are you comfortable with that?
You feel good about that?
No.
Okay.
I
mean, have you ever seen an executive prior to Trump, even at the federal level or the state level, earn as much from their position? In your lifetime, have you seen?
No, I haven't. And I think the reason he's doing this because there aren't any guardrails. He does not have any checks. It's not checks and balances.
So then why do you always get mad at me when I say government on the tape? You're just saying no checks and balances. You haven't seen this level of corruption before, but then you object to me every time. I'm like,
no. But because he has the Congress and he has the Senate now.
Right.
If it flips, then we'll see what happens.
All right.
Well, let me just stop you right there. I love it when you guys get into it like that. To be the referee. Hey, let me referee this thing. Go Braves!
Go Braves!
Listen. I think that what you're saying is right. I think what Ron's saying is right too. But you can't control a loose cannon when that cannon is being not stopped. When you have checks, see, the government was set up to have checks and balances.
Most definitely.
Right? But when the checker who's supposed to be checking ain't checking, and because we do live in a democracy and the majority rules, right? The majority rule. So because the majority rule, just can move back to this, what we were talking about, because this SAVE Act thing that they were talking about, that they voted on. I don't know if it passed because we'll have this Friday. So this is pre-recorded. Those of you listening to it and viewing it. But I don't know, as he said, is that whether or not you're gonna get Collins or some of those ones that are mad at him because he put challenges against them, the one in Texas, the one in Pennsylvania, and whether or not Susan Collins will come along and vote against it. Because, they got a slim margin now. So they already they're getting slim margin now. And Fetterman, he over there with them anyway, so we can't count him.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. You can't count him.
No, he's already going to vote for it.
Yeah, he's going to vote for it. You can't count him. You can't count him. He up there campaigning with the Republicans.
Yeah, he needs to go ahead and flip.
Yeah.
Why don't the Democrats kick him out the party then? Why is he being a turncoat scot-free, just like Senator Manchin from West Virginia before him?
Yeah.
There's always a turncoat Democrat in the Senate to make sure the Republicans get every thievery they want across the finish line.
Well, Ron done said that, now I'm going to say this. Brothers and sisters, politics is a dirty game. It's a dirty game. And what I see is billionaire, millionaire. People get in there and they get in there to look out for the people. But once they get there, they forget their purpose for being there. Because they get bought out by these lobbyists, these donors who donate to their campaign and donating to their functions and all this. And then you got Alex sitting over there, who Alex is the real culprit, because what Alex did was wrote all these bills that these representatives on the state level came back and introduced them in their state houses. And some of these people who were in those state houses are now moving to the national level. And those same people who control them on the state house will be controlling them in DC. So you got to understand these PACs, who they getting this money from. See, we don't, and I've said this before, we don't donate to campaigns. If we do, it may be $100, maybe $200,
right.
But we ain't got no $5,000 or $10,000, or I give him the max at $225. I give you the max at $25. I've maxed $25, and we ain't got that kind of money. They give them to their employees, and their employees donate to the campaign. So that's how they get around it. That's how they get around it, really. And so they're able to do that. When you got, what's his name, Jackson said?
Yeah, Jackson.
He said he donated
to his campaign?
His campaign.
About $104 million.
$104 million that he donated to his campaign.
From his own money.
His own money. So I mean, and they ain't talking about how much money he done gave to some of his people that donate to his campaign. I mean, that's just real talk. See, what we're seeing here is we're seeing a classic example of the Vietnam War. I was looking at something the other day when they were talking about these pilots that were sent over the bomb and what have you, and the Secretary of State at that time, Lyndon Johnson, was the president. The Secretary of the State was telling Johnson, don't allow them to bomb here. And the general was saying, these are the places we need to bomb now. But the Secretary of State told the president, no, they don't need to bomb. They need to bomb. And then because he listening to the Secretary of State, those people lost their lives. They lost their lives because they listened to the Secretary of State. Now, listen, I'm saying this because I think people need to understand this. We have a Secretary of State that's in this war that on and off, and you asking for $1 trillion. We got people that are hungry. We got people outdoors. We got people who need health care. Right. Hello, somebody. These are issues. We just talked about it. We got young ladies and parents who got to pay $500 something a week for child care. But you over there fighting a war and asking for more and more money, enriching yourself when the people here who are paying the freighter costs, they're not getting any benefits of their own money. Because I keep saying it's Medicare for all, man. With this country, nobody should be going to a doctor telling me they can't see a doctor because they don't have health care insurance. I mean, that's just real talk. So we need to have universal health care. If it's Medicare for all, whatever you want to call it. But you need to have universal health care. I think that the people up there in D.C., they need to start looking at, and we need to advocate, if nothing else, it's health care for everybody. Everybody, no matter how old you are, how young you are, you ought to have health care. Now, I don't know if you know this, Tate, and I don't know if you know this, Ron, but the word on the street is they're going to raise the retirement age up to 70. So a lot of these kids,
we ain't gonna be able to retire. We ain't gonna have retirement age.
And then in 2036, it's a whisper. They're whispering this. They're whispering it. 2036, they're gonna cut Social Security and name it another name and cut the benefits in half. See, these are things that they're working on, the Republicans. These are things that they're working on. These people run around here and say, oh, they're good for, they're good. No, they're hurting the American people. They're hurting the American people by taking their money and using their money against them. I was looking at Rice, former Secretary of Labor Rice, talking about all the lies Donald Trump done told. All the lies that he done told. When he opened his mouth, he lied.
Oh, yeah.
When he opened his mouth, he lied. He lied. So you hit it though when you said he's using that act to be able to get so far. And then, okay, we got a memorandum of understanding. Oh, it didn't work. We're going back and we're playing war. We're using that.
Now we got a new war.
Now we got a new war. Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah. He playing on it, and people are losing their lives. They're losing their lives. And then they want to cut veteran benefits. They want to cut, you asking me to go fight the war, and then you cutting the benefits for veterans who have gone and fought in World War II, fought in Vietnam War, fought in these wars.
Again, when the president did not fight in Vietnam, when his number was called, he made sure he had a doctor in place that could write him out of military conscription. He avoided the draft. So we see that the top 1% take the sacrifices of the 99%, bundled it up for their increase, and then deny the 99% any benefit from our own action. If you're getting up working every day to support yourself, if you're filling your gas tank with money that you have to earn from your own income, your hair should be on fire right now. You should be looking at your government with disgust and impatience, and the fact that we have to continue to wait to get solutions while the Dow Jones and the stock market continues to soar. These top 1% billionaires are making record profits off your misery, off my misery, and off the thievery that continues to happen from the top down.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, Paul, the Apostle Paul, you know, I get a sermon every now and then.
Give.
I got one last week. Tate and I both preached. I don't know who preached the most, him or me. But the Apostle Paul went around killing everybody, calling on the name of Jesus, right? And he met under the Master's road that knocked off that beast, right? And he was blind. He was blinded. But then he had to go to Ananias' house in order to be able to see. See, we need to be able to go into the house and be able to see, because see, too many people walking around here blind. They're blind. They're blind to the fact. They're blind to the fact of what's really going on. They feel the impact, but they're blind to the fact. You with me, Trey? You with me?
Absolutely.
They're blind to the fact, but they feel the impact. And to your point, what do we do? That's what they're saying. What do? We pray. We talk to God. We wait on God. Yeah. But God is looking for us to do what you said.
Personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility.
Divine sovereignty and personal responsibility.
You got a responsibility. You come November.
Right.
Come November, you should be telling everybody that we going to the polls and voting. And we voting. Stop talking about, well, my vote don't count. They gonna do what they want to do anyway, and making all these excuses for your demise.
Mm-hmm.
All these excuses for your demise. You got to get up out of that seat and make your way to the polls to vote. Now check your registration early. Check your registration to make sure that you're still registered to vote. Make sure, and if you're not still registered to vote, then re-register to vote. Because there's a deadline. Check your voter registration office in your county and find out when the last day to register to vote. But if you are a voter registered, if you're one of those million people that didn't vote, it's time for you to show up and cast your ballot and vote. Because if we want change, we have to be the change agents. We can't leave it up to Roland Tate. We can't leave it up to Ronald. Can't leave it up to me. Because we're just 3 votes. But you need to be able to vote and vote your conscience. That's Greg Fan, the Preacher Man. That's all I got to say. This ain't been nothing but straight talk with yours to the Greg Fan, the Preacher Man, Ronald Allen. Welcome back. And Bishop Roland Tate.
We'll be back at it next week.
This ain't been nothing but what? Straight